Hey everybody, this is Peter with Tabletop Gaming Guild, and today we're back again taking a look at a new book from Free League Publishing for their game Forbidden Lands. So previously we've done some videos for Forbidden Lands. We did an unboxing of their boxed set, which comes with all of the core rules. It comes with two books, the Game Master's Guide and the Player's Handbook. We've also done some videos on their campaign books that they've released as well. But today, the new book is Forbidden Lands Book of Beasts. And the thing that I love about this is a book that's meant to be some new creatures to throw at your players, some new rules for running the game, stuff about journeys, and also some rules for how to play Forbidden Lands solo, all by yourself, no GM required. But the thing that I love about this being a continuation of the rules or in addition to the rules of the game is that the two books that come in the box set, the Game Master's Guide and the Player's Handbook, also look very similar to this book. They took the time to make sure to make this new one a faux leather book, just like the Player's Handbook. This nice faux leather. This one is red. It's got the gold embossing all around it, as well as then the Game Master's Guide, which is a green faux leather with the gold embossing. And so the Book of Beast is a blue faux leather, the gold embossing all the way around. Very excited to know that they continue to focus on the details over at Free League Publishing. Love that about all of their materials. The only difference between these three rules books is that the original two come with a ribbon on the inside to use as a bookmark, and this new book does not, but a very small difference. I do love those ribbons, though, by the way, for the bookmarks. I like things that are built in like that so I don't lose my bookmarks, which I do from time to time. But very excited about the fact that they're focusing on the details. They're keeping these books to look like a set together when they're on your shelf. They're going to look great. The faux leather is nice and sturdy. The pages are good and hefty. Very excited about the physicality of the new book. But what we're going to do today is we're going to dive into the PDF over on the computer, and we're going to take a close look at the art as well as some of the creatures that come in it. We have 28 new beasts to throw at our players. And again, like I said, some new rules that we want to dive into as well. So without further ado, let's head over to the computer, pull up the PDF, and we'll see about what's inside this book. And then we'll come back and I'll give you my final thoughts on Forbidden Lands Book of Beasts. All right, everybody, here we are. We're at the computer with the PDF for Forbidden Lands Book of Beasts by Free League Publishing. And we're going to go ahead and take a quick look at this nice piece of line art that we have here in the book and the end pages. And instead of a map like we've gotten with all of the other Forbidden Lands books, we get this really cool piece of art of what looks to be an ancient dragon's treasure trove, but the dragon's dead. The adventurers who come here looking for the treasure, they're all dead. And it's just this mass kind of graveyard all of a sudden. So a really cool piece of art. I really, really like it a lot. Next, we take a look and we have our table of contents showing us that the vast majority of this book is the bestiary. We have 28 brand new creatures that we are going to be learning about and dropping into our games, so that's fantastic. And then the latter half of the book is filled with some random encounters, some new Game Master tools that you can drop into your game as well, and then we finish with our solo rules and some printable pages with legends written on them. What we're going to do now, though, is take a quick look at one of the brand new creatures that we're dropping into our Forbidden Lands game, and we're just going to take a look at the very first one in the list, and that is the amphibian. So this is going to be a good example of what all of these beasts are going to look like. We're getting a nice line art drawing of each one of the creatures. We get a little bit of fiction in kind of the parchment section here. Then we get a description in more of kind of game talk rather than fiction about the creatures themselves, why they're interesting. Then we get a random encounter, maybe we get two random encounters, and then a few of these new creatures we also get events. And the events are interesting later on, especially when we get to the small portion about Strongholds, because there's a rollable chart for Strongholds and possible events that take place there. So that's why we get a separation of random encounters and events. So we get that information. We have a lore roll section where players are allowed to roll, and if they get successes, it's information that they have either heard or learned about these creatures.
We get the stat block for the creatures themselves, attributes, movement, skills, armor rating, typical gear, and then any special abilities that they may have. And then we also get a really cool section about resources, because, you know, whenever you're fighting creatures, you want to know, well, what can I now take from this creature that's going to benefit me in the game? And so each one of these creatures is given a little chart for a little section about resources and the things that they can add. So specifically here with amphibians, the amphibian eggs are not only delicious, but highly nutritious, making them an excellent source of food. An egg is a tiny item that can be cooked by a chef into a unit of food. The eggs can also be sold at a substantial profit. The typical rate is 5 silver coins per egg. So really cool information there about resources that you can be gaining from the creatures. Again, just to give you a quick example of some of the fiction that you'll come across when looking through this bestiary, let's go ahead and read the one here about the amphibian, as you also take a moment to look at this really cool piece of art. The water goddess Flo, caring and good, appears to have sharp side. To protect the source of the healing springs and the crystal clear waters that are the essence of Flo, she created the amphibians, cosmological hybrids of lung and gill, tasked with preserving the purity of the waters by watching the entrances to their goddess's realm. They are secretive creatures, reclusive and shy, but in carrying out their protective duties, they are as slippery as eels and as cruel as poisoned toads. Woe to those who bring the filth of the earth to their unsullied realm. Woe to those who bring human diseases to the springs of the divine. Above all, they guard against the demons who muddy the waters with their mog, but unwashed adventurers will also meet a swift end if they try to pass down into the sacred freshwater deep. So really cool little bits of fiction for each one of the creatures. There are 28 of them, each one getting the same level of love and care with the art. Really cool fiction, rollable lore table, resources that can be gained from them, their stat blocks with all of the monster attacks that they have, and it's just a lot of fun getting to read through these and look at some of the great art. This is one of my favorite pieces of art from the new bestiary, and that is for the giant specter. So really cool stuff coming from that. Like I said, 28 new creatures that you can be throwing at your players. Next, over here on the right, we're going to go ahead and click on the page for random encounters. Same as in the Game Master's Guide, there is a rollable D66 chart here for all of the encounters that you can find. It's broken up by number and then also the terrain type that it can land in. So you're just going to roll on the D66 chart, and that will tell you if you're in this terrain and you roll this number, which random encounter you're going to go to. So this is the idea that it makes it so easy on the Game Master that you can roll on this, read the encounter real quick, and then run that encounter for your players. Lots of really cool ones in here. The first one is called the Birthing Manticore. And it says, an agonized bellow echoes through the wilderness, bending trees and branches with its sound wave and shaking the very earth beneath your feet. The next bellow almost knocks you to the ground. There is no doubt about it. A large and powerful beast not far from here is in immense pain. And then it goes on to describe the actual random encounter that your players are going to run into. And then again at the bottom, it gives you the terrain types that this random encounter can take place in. And there are 36 brand new random encounters that you can have here to throw at your players. So that's the random encounters bit. I've read through these. They all are fun. They all are cool. Some of them a little bit darker than others, but some really cool things that are happening there. Next, we have the Game Master tools, and these are additional rules and things that you can use for your game. The first section here is a rollable chart for some traps that you might want to throw at your players. The next section after that is books, ballads, and grimoires. This one I really like. It gives you a way to level up your players' general talents and their skills and magic talents beyond just them spending XP on things. And so these are possible types of books that they might come across while adventuring, that then they'll roll on some charts to see what talents and things they might be able to level up. So if it's a ballad, then it's a rank +1 in a general talent that they get to gain. If they roll a 4 through 6, then there's a manual, which gives them a level +1 in a skill, roll for skill and manual. And then if it's a 7+, it's a grimoire. Now this one specifically says it can only be used by druids and sorcerers because it's gaining them a rank +1 in their magic talent. But when they figure out from the first d6 roll what type of book it is, then you're going to be rolling either on the talent and ballad D666 chart, or they're going to be rolling on the skill and manual D66 chart, or the magic talent and grimoire chart for the D66. And it tells them again either which talent is being affected, which skill is being affected, or which magic talent is being affected. And there's just some really cool information for all of those. Next, we have additional stuff that you can do for journeys. And so we get here the types of locations and terrain types that are going to be affected. So you get all of the different terrain types. You roll on a d6, and then you get some information. This is mostly just to kind of help the game master who needs a little bit more help in describing the locations that the players are entering. So as they enter one of these terrain type hexes, the game master would roll on the chart, and this is going to give you some very quick sentence length descriptions for that terrain, just to kind of get your creative juices flowing. But they have one of those D6 charts for each one of the terrain types. And then they have something very similar, which is camps. And so depending on which kind of terrain type, if the players are there and they're trying to make camp, you roll on this D6 chart for that type of terrain, and it gives you a little bit of an idea to describe the type of camping location they could find in that terrain type. So not all game masters are going to need this, but it's a nice addition to get the creative juices flowing, like I said, for some of the game masters who are maybe finding it hard to come up with new creative ideas for each of the hexes that their players are going into. Then they have this really cool optional complication of weather. So depending on which type of weather is going on in the hex that they're entering or that they're in, then there is a D6 chart for that where you could roll on it, and it might affect some of the things that the adventurers are doing. So quick example here, if there is a wind in the hex that they're in, then you can roll a d6, and it says here if there's none, so a 1 to 2, no great force of wind, then making camp gets a +1. So if they're choosing that to be their activity, they get a +1 to their roll. If it's a 3 to 4, there is a slight breeze, but no effect at all. If it's a 5, then there is a gale, and the make camp action gets a -1 to their roll. And then if it's a 6, it is storming, and they're going to get a -2 to their making camp. And then for a quarter day, all player characters must succeed with an endurance to keep moving. So this is just one way to level up, again, your game by describing the type of weather that is taking place and how it may affect one or more of the different roles that the players are taking on as they're journeying through that hex. We then also get to the portion here where there's rules for strongholds, and like I said, we get this little bit here about events at the stronghold. There are 6 different events that will then go back and point you back to specific monsters. So on that D6 chart, we see here that if you would roll a 1, all that glitter is not eggs, and that's for the amphibian monster. So you would jump back to the amphibian monster, and then that event would take place at a stronghold. So that's a nice little addition as well. And then you get some information here, servant personalities that you can roll on that chart, potions and poisons, and there's always people who want to be able to forage and to make things, and so there's a section here about how to forage and craft specific potions. So there's the new talent that they're adding in here, the alchemist. And it's talking specifically, so the people who want to be able to do that, they want to take this new talent, the alchemist. And then depending on if they're finding some herbs and they want to roll to create some potions, then here is a chart that will help you figure out what kinds of things they might have, what kind of materials they could have. So for an example, the very first one on here says drops of strength. The price of it would be 5 gold, the supply would be rare, the weight of it tiny. The raw materials, though, 1 herbs, so there's the chance that they could do some searching for herbs. And then if they would happen to also have giant's blood. as long as they have those 2 raw materials, they could use these optional rules here to create a strength +1 drops of strength potion, and it would last for a quarter day. So just a cool little bit of information to add in the ability for people to take on the alchemy role that we don't always get in some of these fantasy games, or if we do, then we're kind of making it up as we go for the game master. But this is a nice, really succinct way of adding in a little bit of that for the game as well. There's also a table here for poisons, not just beneficial alchemical potions, but also poisons that can be created. Interactions between different types of potions are listed here as well. And then we also get a section on some more artifacts that we can add into the game if we want to add those in as well. So pretty much the rest of the book here is about 14 pages of solo rules. How to play Forbidden Lands as a solo adventurer. You're going to be using a deck of cards without any jokers to kind of do anything that a game master would normally do. If there's a chart that you would roll on normally, or the game master would roll on normally, you're going to be using a deck of cards to answer those questions or choose your options. They definitely want you to create your regular player character the same way you normally would. That doesn't really change. But then also they recommend adventuring with a companion, and this would be kind of a watered down main character where you're going to skip some of the processes and it tells you what you want to do to create that companion character, so you'll know what things to skip. And if your main character would ever die, then you can just upgrade your companion to your new main character. They do say that you can have more than one companion if you want, but to start off, it would be best to just start with one as you're learning these solo rules and figuring out how this whole thing is supposed to work. Now, I don't know about you all, solo rules are really cool and interesting, and I think it's great that they're providing that for players who can't get an adventuring party together. But I know this isn't the way that I would normally choose to play. But I am glad that they're making it available, because the more opportunities people have to play games that they love, the better. So when you're creating your character, then you do that the normal way. But when you're creating your companion character, it does say that there are some things that you're going to do differently, because you don't want to take the focus away from your main character. So here are a couple things that are going to be a little bit different with your companion. They're not going to gain any willpower, and they cannot push their rolls. Companions should rarely roll for themselves. Instead, they can give a help die in many situations, except for the journeying, when they can and should roll independently. And then if your main character dies, then you can upgrade the companion. So those are pretty much the big things there. When you upgrade the companion, all of a sudden they gain the things that you are taking away from them when you're just creating them as a companion. You're also going to figure out the motivation of the companion, why they're traveling with you. And again, here's our first chart with the card system. So if you draw a number 2, it's Wanderlust, a 3, a Fugitive, and you have all the way from 2 through 10, Jack, Queen, King, and Ace. So you flip over a random card after you shuffle, and then you go ahead and take a look at it, and that gives you the motivation for your companion character. Now, when creating the companion, you also want to follow these steps below. They give you a place to choose a profession for your companion that complements your main player character. So if your player character is a druid, then you want to choose from either fighter, hunter, rider, or champion is what they're suggesting. And they have the chart there for all of the main PC professions, and then the ones that complement those for your companion. Then you're going to also, it says, use the life path system from the Legends and Adventurers booklet to create your companion with a few tweaks, and they give you the list of tweaks that you're going to make for them. And again, all of this is creating your companion for your player character. Now, when you get started, they have a whole page here on page 168 that's going to tell you how to get your adventure started. There's a way to figure out the situation that has kind of led to you getting ready to start your adventuring, a legend that your character has heard about and their main reason for setting out. You're going to choose your location and date, and then figure out your first moves by going through the quarter day procedure, which is provided on the next page. And then it does talk about advancement, which is a little bit different here for solo play. Instead of awarding experience points at the end of the session, you're going to ask the questions from page 39 of the player's handbook at the start of every new day, except you're not going to award any experience for just attending the session because you're the only player there, so of course you're there. But all the other questions you're going to answer, earning XP and getting to spend XP to level up your character as per usual. Now, journeying is a big part of the game. Obviously, this is a hex crawl, and so they have information here as to how you will journey on your own. Again, you're going to be shuffling up your deck of playing cards, you're going to answer your XP questions, and then you're going to roll on the weather chart here on page 153 of the book. And then you get to assign and resolve tasks for your main character and your companion. And then they have a new hex procedure. So every time you're going into a new hex, here is the procedures that you're going to do to figure out what's going on in that hex. And you'll follow those as well. So again, you have the card system. Anytime it's something that has to be just made up that the game master would normally do, you go back to looking at these charts, randomly drawing a card, and then that randomly drawn card decides what's going on. So there's a list here of general encounters, and again, you're going to be drawing the cards for that. And this one breaks it down not just by what card number or face value you're getting, but also then by the suit that you're getting, with the diamonds, hearts, clubs, or spades. And then a big thing here, you're exploring the map. This is a hex crawl. It said pretty much everything that you would normally do that's listed for journeying in the player's handbook is the same, except for keeping watch at camp. And again, it says since the GM would normally decide whether something happens, to address this, simply draw a card and consult the general encounter table that we just took a look at. And that's going to help you decide what is going on in those areas. If you would need it, then there is also a faction chart here. And this one is a rollable D66 chart that you would roll 2d6s to figure out what's going on. Again, anytime that you would come into a situation where you need a little bit more information, they have a yes-no oracle and a theme oracle chart here for you to pull cards to kind of give you answers to your questions, because these are meant to be random. So you're going to go ahead, and anytime you have questions, if you're not sure, then you go ahead and draw cards and then you follow these answers here. So it's got card numbers or face values, as well as then here it's broken down not by suits but by colored suits. So all the red suits and all the black suits to help answer your questions as you play through the game. There's a wilderness oracle chart. There's kin names chart as well. And then there's traits chart. So there's a whole bunch of charts here, all of them having to do with shuffling the cards, drawing a card, and it's going to help you out with NPCs. It's going to help you out with what's going on in the hex that you're entering. And then again, each day or each quarter day, you follow those steps where you're assigning your main character the thing that they need to be doing and your companion character the thing that they need to be doing, and rolling for those activities. There's also a card chart for any loot that might be found during the game, and then there's also some information about social interactions that you might have as you role play inside the villages. Now, they do say here that you could play these same rules with other actual people at the table. Maybe you have 3 or 4 players, but nobody wants to be the game master. Well, you could follow these same ideas, but everybody would make their own player character. There would be no companion characters. And then you would follow all of these same rules for figuring out what is going on in each of the hexes, what kind of encounters could be going on. Now, the other thing that I did want to go ahead and mention real quickly is that it does mention here in the Exploring the Map section that if you're playing the game really solo, that there are many available published adventure sites that are written for a game master. It does say here that if you use those in solo game, you'll need to disconnect obviously what you read from and what your PC knows. So you're going to be reading information that you know, but how well are you going to role play it yourself that your player character doesn't know that information? So that part makes it a little bit more difficult if you're using some of the pre-written adventure sites that is made available, but it's something that you can do. So it says here that you want to start with reading the flavor text for the site and then progress slowly through the rest of the text, asking the oracle questions regularly along the way. So again, that's the questions that you're asking, and you're flipping over the cards randomly to determine what kind of answers you're receiving from the oracle deck. So that is kind of very quickly going through these 14 pages of rules for playing the game as a solo player. Again, I think it's cool that they're adding it in there so that players can get to play the game more often. But again, obviously my preference is I'm going to get a game master. I'm probably going to be the game master, and I'm going to get a few friends together to play the game. But it's nice that they have this for those of us out there who sometimes just can't get people to the table, but we still want to play the game. So everybody, that is the Free League Publishing, the Book of Beast. It's a brand new book. I think it's really great. I think my favorite part, of course, is the bestiary that is in there, the 26 brand new creatures that you have to throw into your game. I do like having more random encounters. I think that's always great. I like the weather ability that they're giving you in the Game Master's tools that you can roll on for the journeys to kind of freshen those things up. I like that. I like that it affects the activities that the adventurers are choosing for themselves that day. Lots of great art. And yeah, so that's pretty much everything. I'm excited by this book. Let's go ahead and jump back up to the table, and I'll give you my final thoughts on Free League Publishing's Forbidden Lands Book of Beasts.
All right, everybody. So we are done taking a look at Forbidden Lands Book of Beasts. I'm going to go ahead and give you some final thoughts on this new release from Free League Publishing. One, I am always incredibly excited to see Free League Publishing continuing to put out new materials, but also supporting their older games as well. Something that I really appreciate from them is the fact that, one, we're not getting this like constant glut of new materials from them all the time. But it seems like every time they do put out a new book for one of their games, it's incredibly well thought out. It is actionable materials. These are things that I'm going to be able to immediately throw into my game without too much issue. And I love that they added a way to play this game solo. For a lot of players out there, getting a game master or even a few friends to play together isn't always an option. And so the fact that they're continuing to broaden their player base is a great idea from, one, a sales standpoint, but also for the people out there who love playing these games. So the fact that they decided to think it through and to work out a way for players to just jump into this world is fantastic, even if they're going to be doing it all by themselves. So I think this is a fantastic addition to the Forbidden Lands game. I love all of the creatures. There's so many more new encounters to run. And then again, the fact that, again, I can just play this game all by myself now if I would like is wonderful. And it's not a difficult thing to do. The rules for it are very straightforward. So thank you, Free League Publishing, for sending us a copy of the Book of Beasts. I think this is a great addition to your game. Everybody, thank you for watching. If you found the video helpful or you liked it, give it a like and maybe subscribe to our channel. Check out all the other great videos that we are putting out on a regular basis. And if you are interested in playing Forbidden Lands and you haven't before, head on over to freeleaguepublishing.com. Maybe you're already running the game. Head on over there and pick up Book of Beasts if you haven't picked it up yet. You can also head on over to tabletopgamingguild.com to learn a little bit more about us. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And until we get to talk again, keep on playing games.